Hello, everyone. We've still got several people joining, so I am going to give this just a couple more minutes and then we will get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I have 12:02. I think we'll get started. We have a very busy program planned for today, so we want to make sure we give ourselves enough time. Welcome to our February 24th All In for Kansas Kids biweekly webinar. My name is Debbie Deer, and I am the Early Childhood Systems Coordinator with the Children's Cabinet, if you haven't met me before. And I am also joined by my colleagues, Bria Cudney and Hannah McGahey, who are partnering with me on planning of this webinar today. So we are happy to have you join us, and we hope that you will find the information that we are going to share helpful and enjoyable. Our agenda today consists of briefly going over a few general updates with you and then dedicating the majority of our time for a presentation by the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition. So to get started with a few of our updates, the Child Care Development Fund program provides federal funding to assist low-income parents with childcare costs and also promotes learning and development. And this fund also provides funding to enhance the quality of childcare for all children in Kansas. And so states are required to submit a new plan to their federal partners every 3 years, describing how they will meet those federal requirements, as well as what they are currently doing on their policies and practices. So the Kansas Department for Children and Families manages this, more commonly known to you possibly as DCF. And so they are working very closely with the Children's Cabinet and many other early childhood care and education partners to seek new opportunities to engage participants and align with the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan. So we need your input. And we have some dates listed here that are opportunities for you to gather your input and help shape the decisions that are made across our state in early childhood. So all of your ideas are welcome. You can attend a virtual public input session tonight at 7 or on Saturday, upcoming February 27th at 10 a.m. And we really want to provide these times outside of working hours, especially for those of you that might be working with kiddos all day. So you can see the links here, and also I believe Bria's putting them in the chat. The Kansas Department of Health and Environment currently has 3 open home visiting positions that you can see here. They wanted to announce this, so if you or anyone you know is interested in applying for one of these positions, you can visit the State of Kansas Employment Center at this link provided, or you can also contact Carrie Aiken or KZ Bigler with any questions that you might have. This Friday, there is going to be a virtual Grant Writing 101 webinar. It's open to all of our subgrantees as well as the public, and it's going to provide information where you can learn to write grants, including budgets and making a compelling argument for why you are applying for the money. And if you're interested, we're asking that you contact Bria Kedney, who is putting her email address in the chat. We also have some kindergarten readiness quality subgrants that are currently available. These grants support community efforts to help ensure the successful transition of children from early childhood settings to kindergarten. And we all know how important that is. So the key partners in this effort are eligible to apply, such as community-based organizations, family and child care center providers, and other organizations involved in early childhood throughout the community, as well as school districts. So the deadline for this is March 19th, and you can go to this link here that lives on the Children's Cabinet website. So I am now very excited to get started with today's program. I would like to introduce Brenda Bandy, the co-executive director of the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition, who is also joined today by a panel of experts from across the early childhood education field in Kansas. And they are going to share a presentation on breastfeeding as an important part of the early childhood continuum. So welcome to Brenda and all of her panel members today, and I will let you take it from here, Brenda.
Thank you so much. I'm going to take over driving the slides here, so hopefully this will work. All right. Nothing like jumping in the middle, right? Okay, here we go. Y'all seen hopefully the first title slide. Thank you so much, Debbie, for the lovely introduction. And we do have a lot that we want to share with you over the next 45 minutes or so. So kind of buckle in and get ready to hopefully see how you can integrate breastfeeding into your role in the early childhood system. So as Debbie already introduced, it's not just me today. There's a lot of partners that are involved in this work, that have been involved in this work for a long time. So we're very excited to be able to share with you voices from across the field on this. First, I thought we'd set the stage for what is the state of breastfeeding in Kansas. This is actually the cover of a report that we issue every August that shares with you what is our current state of breastfeeding. And I'm going to share with you some data around where we currently stand compared to the rest of the country in breastfeeding rates, as well as where we need to go to reach the Healthy People 2030 goals that were just recently announced. And you can see that in Kansas, we are above and exceed the US rate in breastfeeding in all measures. So that's really exciting. We're the red bar there. And the US is the blue bar. The Healthy People 2020 or Healthy People 2030 is the gold bar. What I think that this data shows is that while we have a large number of families that start out breastfeeding, over the course of time, that number diminishes. And what that says to me, the way I interpret this, is that we have the intention to breastfeed, the desire. People understand the importance of this, and families want to breastfeed. And yet there are barriers that they face to continue breastfeeding. So our work is really about removing those barriers so that more families can continue breastfeeding. This is a snapshot of the state by county. You can see that our breastfeeding initiation rates, this is captured from birth certificate data, really vary significantly across to the state, anywhere from 72% up to 97% initiation rates. But I wanted you to get an understanding of geographically, these are, again, initiation rates, how many people start out with breastfeeding. We also know that breastfeeding is a choice, but it's not the same choice for all families. And this is something that we know as a nation, as well as in Kansas, there are gaps in breastfeeding by race and ethnicity. And we are committed to addressing and closing these gaps along with our partners. I know many of you are working on this as well. But you can see here in Kansas, there is about a 9% gap between Black breastfeeding initiation and the Kansas average and that is really about the choices that families have and the barriers that they face. We know that the rate of breastfeeding, the low rates of breastfeeding in our state is costing us money and it's costing us lives. The National U.S. Breastfeeding Committee calculator estimates that at our current rate of breastfeeding, if we could increase this to 90% of families continuing to breastfeed for the first 6 months, it would save Kansas $27 million just in healthcare costs alone. And it's estimated to save 22 maternal lives and 7 infant lives. And this is over the course of their lifetime from the known illnesses for both mother and children related to reducing those illnesses because of breastfeeding. So our goal is really to address what we consider the full term of nursing so that all mothers and children get the full protective effects of breastfeeding. The U.S. Surgeon General in 2011 issued a call to action to support breastfeeding. And I wanted to highlight one of the 20 action steps was specifically a shout out, a call to action for childcare providers to accommodate the needs of breastfeeding mothers. And this has now been 10 years ago. And we continue here in Kansas to take up that action every day in the trainings that we do and the information that we provide. We recognize that childcare providers, childcare sites have a very central role in supporting mothers and babies. This is a socioecologic model of influencers on moms and babies. Who influences? Who does she listen to? Where does she get her support? And of course, her inner circle are friends and family. And you can see childcare providers are just in that next ring out, and childcare sites even further out. I've come to realize in the 10 plus years that we've been doing this, working with childcare providers, that they all quickly move into friends. They become friends. They become in that inner circle, especially when they care for multiple children at the same time. So childcare providers do play a critical role in supporting breastfeeding in Kansas and elsewhere. So I do also want to say a bit about this 2-generation approach. I think a lot of times when we talk about breastfeeding, we think of the baby and we think about all the benefits for the baby, and we've talked about the health benefits. We don't often talk about the importance for the mother and the health benefits for her, as well as the fact that she's going to be at work more often because her child is healthy. Her healthy child is going to be in care more often and miss fewer days in childcare. So this is actually a global number that shows for every dollar invested in breastfeeding, that we as the state receive a reward of $35 in terms of economic returns. And you can see the reasons why. And this is over the life course of the child, but also the reduced health costs for both the mother and the child, and the increase in productivity because of the healthier mother and child. So just wanting to put that into perspective as well. And I stole this phrase, breastfeeding is foundational, directly from Peggy Kelly. And when she said that, it just really struck me as a great summary of how we view breastfeeding as fitting into all of the things that the early childhood care field cares so deeply about: the social emotional competencies that come from breastfeeding, the cognitive abilities and brain development that we know are associated with breastfeeding. And there's just research study after research study that shows that these are not just short lasting benefits, but long lasting benefits. And you can see one study there in particular measured through the age of 14. And so it also reduces the perpetration of child abuse and maltreatment, which addresses ACEs as well. So it really is part and parcel, and really is, as Peggy said, foundational to so many of the things that we are working on addressing. And it just doesn't get any earlier than the first feeding experience and the first food. And I did want to remind you that we sent a link to you as well. And here's the link. We actually took and I'm going to do a little show and tell here, the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan, went through this and mapped out strategy by strategy. How does breastfeeding fit into this? And I'm happy to say that like almost half of the strategies, there's a connection with breastfeeding in there. So take a moment to take a look at this mapping and this alignment, and we're going to walk through it in a little more detail as well. But I wanted to let you know that that is there. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Chris Nicholson with Child Care Aware of Kansas. Chris?
Great, thanks, Brenda. I am Chris Nicholson with Child Care Aware Kansas. I serve as a project coordinator within the agency, which means I get to do a lot of fun things, one of them including being part of this breastfeeding movement. I am the Kansas Breastfeeding Child Care Section Chair, and I also serve on the Wichita Area Breastfeeding Coalition. So what I'm going to go over with you today is this toolkit that we have. And hopefully Amy will put up the link where you can take a look at this more in depth on the KBC site. But this is a comprehensive resource that we have created for early care and education professionals. We modeled this off of the Alaska toolkit. We asked for their permission because it was so well put together. Why create anything? Through this toolkit, we've also gained some national interests from folks in Tennessee and some folks in North Carolina. So what this does, as Brenda says, we want to make sure that we continue being able to provide breastfeeding families the ability to continue that and be able to keep up with that graph that Brenda had shared. This just kind of gives you an overview of what is in the toolkit. As I said, it's very in depth, and we'll kind of go through the additional pieces of this. So this is the breastfeeding friendly childcare designation that we have. And I always forget, Brenda, I think we created this about 6 years ago. This is a designation that whether you're a family childcare provider or a childcare center, that you can apply for. So it does take a look at each of these 5 criteria, the first one being environment. And you can see some pictures there. The one in the center is what the welcoming spot at the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation Center. As you can see, it's very comfortable. It offers a mother comfy space to be able to pump on site. We do always encourage programs that if the mother wants to have that private space, to have that available for them, but we also want to be able to normalize breastfeeding. And so having just a space within the infant or toddler room also. On the left side there are posters that are up in the center, just again, as any family that comes in, they can automatically see that that family is welcoming to breastfeeding families. And then on the right side are children's resources. Those are 3 areas within the environment that people need to meet for the designation. Policies, we love policies within the early care and education field, all those regulations that we do require to meet the designation, that whether they're a family child care or whether they're in a child care center setting, that there is a policy created within our toolkit or on our both on the Child Care Aware of Kansas website and the KBC website. We do have templates for programs to follow. So again, it's not that they just have to jump off the deep end and try to figure this all out. We're there to support them. Parent information. Again, this is just having information available for parents, for whether they're parents enrolled in the program or interested parents. Immediately when they come into the program, they can see that breastfeeding is welcome there. Within the designation, we do require that programs that achieve that designation keep those resources up to date within 5 years, because we certainly know that things are ever changing, and we want to make sure that families are provided the most current information that they can be through the programs. Staff education. For the designation, we do require that programs, anybody working with children ages 0 to 3, and that can be subs, it can be program directors, assistant program directors, curriculum directors, whatever position they have within that program, that they do take the How to Support Breastfeeding Mothers and Families training. And I'll let Chelsea go more into depth with that, but that is free through Casito, as you can see. And we always encourage any programs, whether they're going towards achieving the designation or not, for them to take that training. It is a 2-hour training. It is jam-packed full of great information. But those programs that have received the designation, they are required to have staff take this again every 3 years. And again, that is because information changes, research updates, and we want to make sure they are current with all the recent information. Through the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition, those that employees, I guess, they can also achieve the business case for breastfeeding. So if we have a child care program or a family child care group home that has achieved the breastfeeding friendly child care designation, once they get that achievement, that designation, I then submit additional information directly to Brenda for those programs to be considered for that employee support. So it shows not only that that site is supporting breastfeeding families, but they're also supporting their employees. And again, with this, there is a policy that's required just so we can see how that looks on their in their programs. And we do offer a template for them to be able to complete that policy. Knapsack, nutrition, physical activity, and self-assessment for childcare. This is a program that has been around quite a long time. It is a self-assessment, as it says, for programs. Currently, there are 7 different modules that programs can go through. And of course, the one we're going to highlight here is the breastfeeding and infant feeding self-assessment. So currently in Kansas, those programs that are involved in our Links to Quality, which is our quality improvement program, our CCQI, our Child Care Quality Initiative, and then currently we have a Go Knapsack regional project where we have specific communities around the state of Kansas that are working with technical assistant coaches or specialists. They have access to the Go Knapsack tool, and they can choose to do the breastfeeding and infant feeding. Within that, it just gives some great resources, information. There's also online training modules. So it is a great tool that we hope will continue to grow in Kansas, and that we can broaden the accessibility for programs. So this just tells you or shows you, if you do reach that designation, that you receive a little decal that you can put up. So automatically, again, a great visual for families coming in, even staff that come in to possibly, apply for a position that shows that you are a breastfeeding friendly childcare program. They receive a certificate that they can post, just again to make people aware that they are breastfeeding friendly. And those are a couple of other of the claims. And then they receive the We Care for Breastfed Babies through KBC. Also through Child Care Aware Kansas, we offer our provider referral service that for families that are looking for child care. And within that, providers fill out what's called a provider profile, and they can self-identify that they are breastfeeding supportive. So that's a check mark that they have within our system. And so if a family goes searching for childcare, and one of their highest important items or what they want to look for in a program is somebody that's breastfeeding friendly, so they can look through that profile of programs that have been pulled out of our database for them. Now, the programs, we also have a designation or a spot within our database that shows that they've received the breastfeeding friendly childcare designation. So that is one that I plug in there. So when they receive that designation. So again, it's a great marketing tool for providers. If they're already supportive of breastfeeding, we want them to be able to be recognized for that and automatically have that pulled out for parents. So when they go searching for that, and again, the bottom line is that we really want to be able to continue the supportive parents, families that want to continue breastfeeding, so we can keep those graphs going up with things. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Natasha Freeman. She's with the K-State Center for Child Development, and her program is one that has reached the breastfeeding friendly childcare designation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chris.
You're welcome.
My name's Natasha Freeman, and I am currently a program manager here at K-State Center for Child Development. When I did start this process, I was an infant, toddler, and twos program manager. So my focus really was to become more knowledgeable in that area on how to support our breastfeeding families and just encourage that and to continue throughout that first year at least. So when I first started, we had about 40 full-time staff that I needed to get trained, and Ms. Brenda helped us with that. And then we had well over 100 student staff. And so because we are a part of the university, they have to be a part of our employment. And so the disadvantage to that is that you can see one of my challenges was that we have high staff turnover as far as the students. So a lot of times I would do the trainings and then students may change their mind and leave our organization. So I just had to continuously train, and kind of collaborate with people to just make sure I'm on the right track. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. What are some other ways I could incorporate this and make it a little more easy? And so another challenge we had was pushback from staff that didn't work with breast milk or had breastfeeding families. And so just explaining to them the benefits for the center for all of us to be have that information and be able to just promote that within our organization. So a lot of times I felt like giving up. I felt like I was never going to make it. And so I just had to tell myself, we can do this, keep going. And then of course I tapped into those collaborative resources to kind of help encourage me, keep me going. So we had to be creative in how to approach this. I started it pre-COVID. I was just about to turn it in March when COVID occurred within our area. And so that kind of pushed back and of course added to some of my feelings of wanting to quit. So just being headstrong and continuing on that process, keeping track of where I was and what needed to be done. And so now we're at the point, we've received our designation, and now we're at the point where staff need to retake that class because it's been 3 years. And so they're just kind of curious they understand why we have to take it. And so they're curious on if there's other courses to take. And so unfortunately right now they have to retake the same course. But again, like Chris had stated, information changes, it's updated. So it'll be just a great refresher for those who really don't deal with breast milk, but still could use that information to help support our families. Mm-hmm. And we are also, we've created a tracking system where we already know who's taken the training, when they need to refresh their training, and then it now has become a part of our orientation. So any full-time staff or part-time staff coming in automatically receive that training.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Natasha. I think it's really helpful to see the realities of what it's like for a large center, especially like yours, to go through this process. So thank you for sharing that. We're going to turn it over to Chelsea Schultz with Kansas Child Care Training Opportunities to talk about that training and what is that actually like.
Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, so KBC, the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition, and Kansas Child Care Training Opportunities have been partnering since 2013. I'm getting a nod from Brenda, that's right, to offer this training. So we have 2 options for that. Both of them are approved for 2 KDHE clock hours. They're both free. KBC receives funding through KDHE to make that possible. The online course, well, both of these courses titles are slightly different, but the content is the same. That content was put together by Brenda Bandy and Vanessa Flood. Vanessa, who is a board certified lactation consultant, facilitates the online course using Casito's learning management system. And then Brenda is typically doing that in person, or now COVID virtual option of that. We also, on the Infant Toddler Specialist Network, some of those specialists have been trained to be able to offer that virtual option as well. So if you are interested in taking one of these courses, the online one is open for registration on the Casito website. And then if you're interested in setting up like an in-person or a virtual offering of that, you would contact Brenda Bandy directly. So the online course is offered once a month through Casito's system. It is free. It lasts a week long. So if you're familiar with Casito courses, it follows that same kind of structure where it's work at your own pace. It's going to take you about 2 hours to do the course, whether or not you sit down and do most of that all at one time, or you do a little bit here and there. There's a couple deadlines throughout it, but as long as you meet those, it's really up to you when you want to do the course. Part of that is reading the information. There are discussion boards and quizzes, and Vanessa Flood, the trainer, is then monitoring all of that, engaging in those discussion boards and providing more resources and information for you as you work through it. Here on this slide, you can see the objectives of that course. So it does address the characteristics of breast milk and the storage and handling. So like kind of what Natasha was mentioning, you might have staff taking this that have never worked with breast milk. So it gives them an idea of what to look for, as well as the behaviors that you might see in a breastfed baby, tips for making the breastfeeding process, bottle feeding process easier in childcare for those breastfed babies. It talks about the importance of why to know that information, including the impacts that breastfeeding has, and goals for supporting the families. I think that's probably the big part of that, supporting the families. So like I said, this has been going on since 2013. We've offered 103 classes to date, with over 4,600 people have taken the course. So that's really exciting. Anybody that takes the course and completes it, they receive these 3 resources here, a feeding tips card that just has some at a glance information, a We Care for Breastfed Babies window cling, as well as this picture on the right is a breast pump bag tag. So it's it loops onto maybe your breast pump bag. So then it's a reminder. The other side has a quick checklist of, did you remember all of these different parts that you need each day? So it's a nice little resource for breastfeeding mothers. All of these resources are available through KBC, and you can order free copies of these for parent engagement. So if you want to do that, there's a link in the chat to order those from KBC. And then lastly, there's just some feedback from people that have taken the course, some of their big takeaways, like not using leftover breast milk, or needing to provide the comfy space for parents, like what we saw in the photos that Chris had shared. The paced bottle feeding, there's some of that information is included in the course. So just lots of really great takeaways from providers that had aha moments while they took the course. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chelsea. This has been a great partnership. You can see how many we've reached, and we do continuously update that class. So those that are retaking it for like the 3-year, like Natasha was saying, it's like, oh, I've already taken that class. Chances are really strong that over 3 years that there's been updates and changes, and we put in new videos and new resources all the time. So it's always fresh and new as well. So thank you, Chelsea. So we're going to move on to Beth. Is Beth with us?
I am.
Great. Welcome.
So, Alan, I Brenda has approached all the community colleges across the state, developing a relationship with them. Chris Nicholson sits on our collaborative group cohort of community college early childhood programs. So a year ago, I took the course online to kind of see what it was about and to explore the content. Alan's early childhood program is all online. And so we made the decision that this semester, this spring semester, we would pilot embedding requiring our students in our child health, safety, and nutrition class to take the breastfeeding training. We really viewed it as being a simple 2-hour training that people can complete as a requirement. They walk away with that certificate, so we know they've done it and they successfully completed the course. And we really viewed it as being a time to have an expert. You know, it would be no different than giving up an entire class time of, an hour, 2 hours in a week for someone to come in and teach the students. The beauty of this course is one that is taught at all the community colleges that have early childhood programs. That's 12 in the state. It is a CTE Excel class, which means high schoolers can take it for free. So currently, for example, in our ECE 103 class, we have 24 students enrolled. They are current providers, high school CTE Excel students, a few nursing students who can take it as an elective, and then just some general electives. We do get random drop-ins. Usually these are parents who take the class and they just need an elective. So all 24 of these students will take the training. They're either scheduled for March or April that they'll take it. Our instructor took it in February and completed it, as she had not taken it yet, but she is a certified nutritionist as well. But again, up to date on research, we really felt like this was the best option. So we will see how that goes as they complete the trainings and the courses. The current instructor is also teaching our, she's in charge of our basic nutrition course, and she's already questioning how we could do that. Now, the beauty of something like that is you're really opening up to the general public, really getting away from a stigma and some of the myths out there that aren't correct. But of course, there's a numbers question and how we could do that. And so, we're already catching on that this is a really great way to tap into best practices and research and have that guest speaker walk in and really open doors and give new information to a wide range of individuals. 103 is a common course taught throughout, but also we have infant and toddler class that is taught by several community colleges as a common course. So that would be another option where this could be used. We also have some what are known as KSRN classes. These are classes that transfer to four-year colleges, and so you get a lot more general education students and teacher education licensure, whereas in the ECE 103, the health, safety, and nutrition, we're really going to get mostly providers, and then some of those high school students, family members. And so you'll see the double asterisks, that's the developmental psych and early childhood growth and development. And then you have some college specific classes related, just dependent upon the program. So we all have different places where we can fit this training, and some of us might even choose to fit it in a couple of our classes. We are hoping to, after this pilot, when we're a little bit further through it in April, we're hoping to create an agreement where all 12 community colleges will sign on to using this training within their classes and requiring of their students. The only question or potential challenge is if funding doesn't continue, it's really something that we can't require additional cost upon our students. And so that's something we are going to work through just on language of the agreement. But at this point, it's really not a concern. And so that's about all I think I have. And so I will turn it over to Jill Ladd with CACFP.
Thank you very much, Beth. So my name is Jill Ladd. I am an assistant director with the Child Nutrition and Wellness team. And if some of you are not familiar with the CACFP stands for the Child and Adult Care Food Program, which is a federal program that provides reimbursements for nutritious meals and snacks served to eligible children and adults who are enrolled for care at participating child care centers, daycare homes, and adult daycare centers. Centers and daycare homes offering meals through the CACFP play a critical role in supporting the wellness, health, and development of children through the provision of nutritious foods. In particular, child care providers have a powerful opportunity to instill healthy habits in young children that can serve as a foundation for healthy choices throughout life. In 2017, the CACFP meal pattern was updated to better reflect science-based recommendations, cost and practical considerations, and stakeholders' input in order to ensure children have access to healthy, balanced meals throughout the day. One of the biggest updates to the infant meal pattern is that providers may now receive reimbursement for meals when a mother breastfeeds on site. And before that wasn't the case. And so this is if a mother comes and breastfeeds on site, either in a daycare center or a daycare home, and directly breastfeeds her child, provider can still receive reimbursement for that meal. The other big change is that there are now 2 age groups instead of 3, and 0 through 5 months old and 6 through 11 months old. And with this change, infants through 5 months are served only breast milk or formula. Also note that breast milk can replace the fluid milk component for children over the age of 12 months. A written request for this substitution is not required, nor is documentation of the amount of milk fed to the child. So do know that the CACFP supports breastfeeding within the child care setting, and that's past 12 months of age if a family chooses that they'd like to do that. So one of the frequently asked questions that we often get is the mother of a 4-month-old breastfeeds her infant and states that the infant only eats 3 ounces of breast milk at each feeding. What should the provider do, since the meal pattern recommendations or requirements state that they need at least 4 ounces of breast milk? Is this meal still reimbursable? And with the new meal pattern guidelines, if the baby usually drinks less than 4 ounces of breast milk, the provider can offer a bottle with only that amount of the breast milk that the baby usually drinks in one feeding to prevent or reduce waste. As a mom, I know that you never want to waste breast milk. You spend precious time getting that. And so this does support that if a child does not typically consume the requirement from the CACFP, that it is okay to offer less to those breastfed babies. However, the provider should still visit with the parents about what they would like the provider to do if the baby does show signs of being hungry between feedings. So lots of people have shared resources today, and CACFP is no different. There are a number of resources and training that are available to childcare providers from USDA and KSDE, which is the Kansas State Department of Education, that can assist in creating a breastfeeding friendly environment. One of those resources is the recently released Feeding Infants in the CACFP Guide. This guide covers topics such as the infant meal pattern, developmental readiness, hunger and fullness signs, handling and storing breast milk and infant formula, solid foods, what is creditable in the infant meal pattern, and much more. You can also find some great parent communication tools, childcare provider handouts, some practice scenarios, as well as a check your knowledge in the forms of questions that go along with the guide. The Feeding Infants in the CACFP guide can be downloaded online from the Team Nutrition webpage, as well as the individual parent handouts that can be found as part of that guide. The Breastfeed Babies Welcome Here, which is also shown here on this slide, is a resource from USDA that contains communication tools that CACFP operators can use to let mothers and families know that breastfed babies are welcome at their childcare site. It includes a mother's guide, a poster, as well as a message graphic that's shown here on the screen. Please note that the Breastfed Babies Welcome Here resources are different than the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition window decal, which is only given to providers that have completed that KBC training. So I think we've seen several different types of window clings and posters so that we can make sure that families know that they are welcome to breastfeed and provide breast milk while their child is in care. I also just want to let you know about a CACFP training opportunity, and it can be for non-CACFP providers as well. But content from the Feeding Infants in the CACFP guide that we just discussed on the previous slide is brought to life through the CACFP Trainers Tools Feeding Infants, which is an in-person training resource from USDA Team Nutrition. These training resources include a trainer's guide, 10 presentations with trainer notes, and 2 of those lessons fully focus on breastfeeding. And those lessons are creating a breastfeeding friendly environment, as well as storing and handling breast milk in a childcare site. It also has 5 videos, 2 of which focus on breastfeeding, 2 game show style digital interactives to help participants test their knowledge within the training, as well as pre and post tests. Trainers can pick and choose from a variety of lessons to create a training that best suits the needs of their CACFP operators. So this would be a great resource that, if you are wanting to provide training to people at your site that you could use. We all like to hit the easy button and not have to create something from scratch. So this is some great evidence-based resources, presentations, and supplemental resources. From those materials, KSDE has created an online Feeding Infants in the CACFP training that can be accessed 24/7. It's free of charge, and it's through our KSDE training portal. And the link is here on the slide. But this self-paced online training is worth 3 hours of KDHE training credit. It provides an overview of the CACFP infant meal patterns, how the infant meal patterns support the growth and development of babies during the first year. And the course also communicates best practices for feeding infants with a focus on topics such as developmental readiness, hunger and fullness cues, handling and storing breast milk and infant formula, solid foods, and much more. As I said, this training was developed using that CACFP Trainers Tool Feeding Infant Guide, as well as Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition resources. You can access the training by going to learning.ksde.org. If you're a first-time user, you will have to create an account, but again, it's free. If you pass the quiz at the end, you'll get a certificate, which can then be used for KDHE training credit. And this is different than that Casito class that the Kansas Breastfeeding Center or the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition offers, but it's another great training opportunity for those of your staff and help them understand better understand infant feeding. So thank you for the opportunity to be on today.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. It's always nice to have you with us and sharing more resources. At this point, we're going to move on to Lori with KDHE, Lori Kravitz.
Hi, I'm Lori Kravitz, KDHE Child Care Licensing Director, and thank you, Brenda, for asking me to be a part of this. I just want to say that we know that as we partner with KBC, that we are strengthening our partnerships with our child care providers and our families. We recognize how important that is. And we definitely have some regulations that govern the storage, the discarding, and the heating of not just formula, but also breast milk. And so I wanted to point that out, that they are in licensing group daycare homes and in center regulations. And because not all childcare providers have taken courses related to storage of breast milk, we know that our surveyors need to sometimes provide a little additional guidance for that. And I just want to mention that we do take time to do that because we know that not all feeding patterns are the same for every infant, and we don't want waste. We don't want infant, we know how important I was a breastfeeding mother. I know how important that is. I wouldn't want it wasted, that precious milk. We want them to understand that maybe smaller amounts need to be started with until they fully understand feeding patterns. And that oftentimes there are infants that doze and eat and doze and eat. And, just those things that you have to learn about a new infant as you take that when you've first taken that child into care. And those are conversations that our surveyors have around the regulations and how they stay within regulation, but make it work for the child and the family too. Sometimes we have mothers that have pumped quite a bit and brought milk for the day, and not all of it has been used. And I'm not talking about what's been in a bottle and should be then discarded, but maybe what hasn't even been started, and that then can be sent home that day. And just basic guidance like that is very, very helpful that our surveyors give on a regular basis. So we appreciate the work that they do there. So we do a lot of other things, and we are so thankful for some dollars that we are given to use MCH dollars to do some promotion and some education and provide some information, working directly with KBC. And we, Chris referred to the breastfeeding friendly designations starting about 6 years ago. I can't believe that it's been that long ago, but we, Brenda came to us and said, can you help us spread this word? And we were very excited to be able to do that and promote that out to our providers and say, this is new and this will be great, and a great way to show your partnership and support to your families. And it's been really exciting, Brenda, over the years to see how your hard work and Chris's hard work has really evolved, and the successes and supports in communities. So just so thankful that we got to be even a small part of that. And of course, we've been able through some MCH dollars to support a little bit of training for providers. Again, it may just be a little bit, but that opportunity has been there. So we've been able to do that. And I just listed just a few of the trainings that we've been able to support. But I will say one of the most important trainings that we have had is the training that Brenda most recently has provided to our surveyors. I started out by saying we have regulations, but our surveyors are so key to taking those moments with our childcare providers and giving them some guidance when it comes to breast milk and a family-friendly environment for inviting that mother in and giving her a space to breastfeed. Well, where does that training come from for that surveyor? Well, that's Brenda. And Brenda took time this last fall to sit down with our surveyors virtually and provide them some guidance and training again. And many of them have heard from her, but we have new surveyors that have not. And as Chris said, there's always something new. So Brenda, thank you for that. They too need to hear what's new, especially as they continue to share the word. So we look forward to that ongoing training. So just know the word that we share, we're going to always get from the expert. And we will always continue to do what we are doing. And that is providing to move forward the information that Brenda provides to us. We're going to send it directly to our providers. That may go from us, or we may send it to our surveyors so that they're getting it directly from them. Or it may be that we're asked to give a consult directly to our providers about something new in the world of breastfeeding. And we will do that too. In any way that we can support our families and our providers when it comes to breastfeeding, we really want to do that. So again, thank you, Brenda, for asking me to be a part of this really important conversation.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lori. And I think that your comment there at the end, that anything that we can do, that refrain I hear over and over again from everybody on this panel. And I just have to share with the people that are on the webinar today that this panel was put together by a simple email, me reaching out and inviting you all, and every single person said, yes, I will do whatever we need to do to put this together. So what you see and what you've just experienced is the partnership that that we have with all of these different partners. And I think it's just a wonderful testament to everybody's willingness to integrate breastfeeding. So thank you, Lori, and to all of the partners. I'm going to just wrap us up here. I know we have a few more minutes left, and I did want to share with you, we've talked a little bit about these resources. We have a supply form on our website. So if you've seen something that you're like, oh, where do I get that? Here's how you get it, and it is free. Thank you to KDHE that supports these materials and the postage. And we also want to invite you, this is just a walkthrough of the survey, to join the childcare section. Chris Nicholson makes it so fun. You know that any meeting, and this, what you see on the slide is our last conference, but you'll recognize many childcare providers in that the last time we were able to get together. So please join us in the childcare section. Everybody that you heard from today is a part of this. It's a great place to continue the conversation. And I do want to let you know that many of you have coalitions in your area, so please reach out and find your local breastfeeding experts to continue the conversation locally. We have a directory where you can find who the local contact person is as well. And then lastly, I did want to take us back to that, bird's eye view of how does this work into breastfeeding? And these are just some of the ideas that map out to the strategic plan that I mentioned earlier. But we'd like for you to consider, how can you use the links to quality, the Go Knapsack? How can you integrate the trainings that you've heard about, the toolkit that you heard about, as well as putting it in your funding? I know that many of you write for other grant proposals. So perhaps you can integrate funding and training and materials around breastfeeding into those requests as well. So these are just some of the ideas, and that document has more. And I do want to allow plenty of time, if we have plenty of time here now, for questions. Oh my goodness, only 4 minutes, but I know we have some questions in the chat box. So I'm going to turn this over to my friends who have been reading the chat box. Can you tell me some of the questions, and we'll just pop them out for some, maybe our panelists?
Brenda, this is Chris. I know Rich early on had a question regarding doulas and midwives. And Rich, let me see if I can scroll back up.
Yeah, it's hard for me with my screen share. I could try to find it, but I think I would
He just asked, does the Breastfeeding Coalition have channels of communication open to doulas and midwives?
Yes, and the answer is yes, Rich, we do. As a matter of fact, we invited a panel of doulas to present to our local Breastfeeding Coalitions section, and many of them are members of the statewide organization as well. So if you're thinking of somebody in particular, please have them reach out to us, because we do have that connection.
It looks like we also have a question from Susan Luquago. Could you talk a little more about the nutrition instructor questioning the content? And I think that was directed towards Beth, maybe?
Yeah, I answered that. I don't think I said she did. Now, she hadn't taken the training. And so anytime we implement anything in our classrooms, we need to do it. So she took the training in February, just so she had that same experience, knew what students were learning. Yeah, but yeah, I don't think she's questioned it. I mean, she's questioning how to put that content into the nutrition class, and just because of the vast number of students that will include, we need to work through that with KBC. But
yeah, this has been a great conversation between the community colleges, Casito, and the KBC about how to figure out the technical pieces, but the content of the training is, I think, very robust, and it aligns with KDHE regulations. Lori has been there from the very beginning, making sure that we represent accurately what the regulations are, and CACFP as well. So yes, other questions, Hannah?
Yeah, it looks like we've got one for Lori. This is from NIS. Can childcare providers keep frozen breast milk on site, or must they use within 24 hours any milk they brought in?
Right, so they cannot keep milk that is thawed overnight, but they can keep frozen milk in the freezer. So we do allow that.
Looks like we also have one from Linda Logan. It says, how does a child care program start the breastfeeding designation? Who is the contact?
I am the contact, and I will put my email address into the chat box. So if anybody's interested in that, they can certainly reach out to me, and I can help them through those steps.
Any other questions, Hannah?
It doesn't look like there are any more in the chat. We do have a couple of other announcements, so just reminders. If there are no more questions, reference this wonderful and illuminating presentation. I'll flip back over. And Debbie, I'll bring it back to you. And Debbie may be in a well. I will ask Lassie. Okay, so just a couple of reminders for you all. We do have our next early childhood recommendations panel meeting. It's going to be March 19th. So registration and YouTube viewing information can always be found on the cabinet website. Our next biweekly webinar that you are going to be graced by the three of us by our presence again, lucky you, is going to be Wednesday, March 10th. And as always, we're always open to any information that you want to know more about. So if you've got a topic, if you've heard of something that's going on, you can always email Bria Cudney or get a hold of one of us. Also, there's ways to contact us on the Children's Cabinet website. And then following our full cabinet meeting, we will have our traditional stakeholder group meeting on April 9th. And as always, we have a link here to share any sort of, or share with you all any sort of monthly feedback. So that's all we have. We want to thank everybody for your participation. Thank you, Brenda, for your hard work, and to all of your expertise. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And thank you to all of the panelists for taking time to prepare for today. I really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.